Hey, howdy, hey. So, I'm going to talk about Lost in the Funhouse by John Barth. So, first off, the story was very confusing. I found myself getting lost in the Funhouse throughout the entire story as John Barth decided that he was going to distract us immensely throughout the entire story with references to how normal stories are written, with references to italics and different methods to use, along with other stuff that really had nothing to do with the story, but that's okay. So I think this was a fairly good story. I got the basic idea of what was going on here. Um, I think overall it's a story about this Ambrose character, and it really doesn't have any implication as to if this is a third party talking about Ambrose, or if this is Ambrose talking about himself, or I did a little research, maybe Ambrose talking about himself, which is weird. I don't get that. But anyways, so um, let's talk about Ambrose a little bit. I can definitely relate to this character as it says in the very first part of like real story is saying Ambrose was at that awkward age. His voice came out high pitched as a child if he let himself get carried away. To be on the safe side, therefore, he moved and spoke with deliberate calm and adult gravity. So I think that Ambrose is, I think it says he's like 12 or 13 or somewhere in that area, starting to go through puberty. We all can relate to that. It's a very awkward time. It was definitely awkward for me. And he, overall, it seems like his biggest idea in life, or um, his main point throughout this whole story is trying to spend time with Magda and trying to sort of profess his affection towards her. There's several parts throughout the story that kind of get us there to the final conclusion where in the funhouse he's with her. One of those is when they're in the car. Barth is talking about how his his hand was very close to Magda's, and how she could easily grab onto it or touch it if she wanted to. And then she scoots forward and he puts his hand behind her back and is wondering, oh, what is she going to do if she sits on my hand? Kind of a little sneakily. And then we go on and throughout the entire story, it is repeated how Magda is well developed for her age. So she is as well going through puberty, but she is already quite a bit into puberty and she is becoming a woman now, and he is starting to have affection for her. How long he's had affection for her, we don't really get an idea, but it seems like it has been a while. And then so we get a little bit when Peter is trying to drag her into the water, even though she doesn't want to swim. And Peter asks Ambrose to help him, and he decides not to, for reasons that I don't think we really get. But I think Ambrose is just trying to look mature for Magda, and he doesn't want to look like a child because since she's mature, he want to act mature so that um, she sees what a man he is and how mature he's become. and all that. And then we keep moving on, and he invites her into the Funhouse, even though he's never been. He says, "Oh, I think we can get through it together." And then Peter, of course, becomes the third wheel, which sucks for him, but that's how life goes. And then so we finally, I think it's a very anticlimactic climax when he's in the Funhouse, because I personally think that the climax is when he is in the Funhouse with Magda, and she gets sort of scared or startled or whatever, so she grabs onto him and presses herself against him, and he says he wants to tell her, "I love you," but then the sailor and the other chick bump into him, and then everything's screwed up for him, and he doesn't really get that chance to say "I love you" to her. And I don't think that he ever does get the chance, because the story kind of breaks off after that, and it seems like at the end it says he wishes he had never entered the Funhouse, but he has. Then he wishes he were dead, but he's not. So I think that overall it's kind of a representation of maybe unprofessed affection or unrequited love or something like that, where Ambrose is having these feelings for Magda, and I don't know if he necessarily he wishes he hadn't had these feelings, but he does, and he doesn't know what to do about them because he still is quite young. So that's my take on this, and looking forward to hearing everybody else's take on this.